everyone, Lou here. Do you remember back in the day, back when Borders was a bookstore and Tokyopop did all our manga translations? Ever wanting those how to draw manga books made by people who only saw a picture of a Kingdom Hearts character 20 feet away? Okay, now imagine making a show of that very concept. That's right guys, today I'll be reviewing the weirdest show I've ever seen from Canada. Roll the intro and let's get started. My Life Me is a 26-episode TV series from Canada and France released on Canada's equivalent to Cartoon Network, Teletoon. The series ran for only 1 month in September and was pretty quickly cancelled after that due to low ratings and poor critical reception. The series was created by JC Little, Cindy Filipenko, and Svetlana Chmakova. Cindy and JC have pretty much nothing noticeable they've worked on for anyone who doesn't read generic lifestyle magazines you find in a clinic, but Svetlana apparently ran a pretty well-received manga-inspired comic book series for Tokyopop called Dramacon. As this series was short-lived, I couldn't quite figure out who was the brains behind it, but if I had to hazard a guess on who it was, I'd say based off the art direction, it was Svetlana. With the backstory for this series out of the way, let's move on to the story. The show is about 4 friends named Birch, Liam, Rafi, and Sandra who are all your stereotypical preteens just dealing with typical life problems everyone at their age goes through. That isn't really anything super hard-hitting. Pretty much this show is Ned's declassified school survival guide, but anime, or a really bland version of 16 but with much younger teenagers. It's a very status quo series too, so there's no overarching story, but that's pretty typical of animated shows before stuff like Adventure Time and Steven Universe exploded, where an overarching story basically became the standard for Western animated shows intended for a general or younger audience. Though each story in the show is pretty over the top for such a simple plotline, like characters having a minor disagreement will turn into the worst thing ever with stereotypical anime angry lines and crying, but I guess that fits considering the main characters are all preteens. Stuff like losing a friend's pet, being upset you're too young to do something, first crushes, running for school president, and stuff like that. It's honestly pretty generic, kind of forgettable too. I mean, geez. I found more flavor in those childhood guidebooks than this show. Though the story plots in this show is not as bad as some other reviewers make it out to be. Sure, it's overly dramatic, but considering it's a show for preteens, it's not that far off from overly dramatic preteen books I read at that age, like The Click or something like that. Considering this is also a comedy, it's honestly not even funny. Like, you think there'd be at least some kind of really cheesy line, but instead there's nothing. It's just a bunch of references to other things. I guess think of the dialogue like the English dub of Digimon, except it doesn't get better with age like that dub. It's overall just very boring. Overall, the story and episodes are fine for the most part, just really overly dramatic and somehow generic. You know what's wrong? This show genuinely has the writing of a bunch of 14-year-olds writing a roleplay on Facebook. Speaking from personal experience, you'll see that this point actually comes up a lot. Birch. Birch is the main character, and this is going to sound really weird, but I love her design. Her design is identical to an old OC I had in my freshman days, so it's actually really nostalgic for some reason. Her personality trait is basically literally anyone who had a weeb phase in 2007 who worshipped Tokyopop and made an OC based off of this particular girl by Suzuhira Hiro, Rafi. He's basically the popular, overly extroverted guy, and basically Birch's love interest, I guess. He's also the ladies' man and overall acts like a generic anime protagonist you see in parodies. I have no idea how else to describe his character other than generic hero boy. Sandra. She's the sporty one, but also a huge bitch to her friends, and I guess they all kind of put up with it. Kinda a shame, because you feel like you could totally do something with that, with her learning not to be such a fucking bitch to her friends, or maybe the kid's cutting her off for being a bitch and she later becomes the mean girl. Something like that. Liam. He's Birch's cousin and basically the weird one. You know, the guy who believes in aliens, who likes quirky gadgets with a really goofy voice? I don't know why, but he reminds me of a bootleg of Odd from Code Lyoko for some reason. I have no idea why. Maybe it's the guy with the blonde spiky hair in an anime-inspired series. I have no idea. The rest are just one-note characters that are literally just one trope. The fangirls, photography kid, teacher, popular bitch, and simp. Obviously, our main characters are not deep at all. They're all generic as hell, which is a shame because I feel like if this wasn't a one-note series, something semi-interesting could be done here. Overall, the characters are bland, but I will give a plus solely to Birch's design because, as I said earlier, she looks like an OC I had in my freshman year. Alright, the style of the animation is actually not too bad. Like, the style reminds me of a lot of anime-inspired art styles a lot of friends of mine had in high school. I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily. As a kid watching this, they could be like, oh hey, I draw like that, and feel inclined to watch it. However, what's pretty bad is the animation itself and strange visual gags. The animation was done in Flash, rest in peace by the way, and everything moves very choppy and clunky. I swear to you, if you altered the audio to sound like it came from someone's $10 headset at Best Buy, I would honestly think this series was made by a bunch of teenagers over the summer because it has the exact same quality as a kid with no experience in animation. I mean, not to sound like a pompous jackass, but jeebus, at least some of my MMD animations I made when I was 16 turned out better than this. That's saying a lot, because I made a lot of garbage content at 16. Okay, so back to the weird visual gags. Basically, everyone acts like a manga parody, like those anime anger lines, the stretchy swirly eyes when someone's shocked, the dread lines and square mouths that go outside the facial structure. If the animation wasn't so choppy, I would say this is actually fine, but then comes the chibi proportions. Good lord. Basically, whenever a character is fantasizing or insulting someone, they turn into a chibi version of themselves with a somehow higher voice than mine and shrill as all hell. It's fine in one gag without the high-pitched voices, but it ends up happening so much that at some point this series visually feels like a checklist of every anime trope in the book that they have to tick off before the end credits. I will give props to having a manga panel used as a character imagines something about themselves. I feel like that could be a very unique touch considering our protagonist is a manga fan. But then it just comes across as really jarring for some weird fucking reason. Overall, while the show is very unique for using its anime art style to its advantage by trying to pull in all the stereotypical tropes found in generic anime, it loses a lot of points for really shitty and inconsistent animation. Not to mention the voice acting is kind of fucking bad for the most of the male characters for some reason. As much as I've been shitting on this show, in actuality, if you showed this to me back in 2010, I'm not kidding, I probably would have said this is my favorite show of all time. I mean, as a kid, I would have ate up literally all their stupid drama and probably would have drawn dozens of pictures of the main cast and some kind of self-insert OC. Though obviously, I'm not 12 anymore, I'm 23, and this show is a boring dumpster fire. What sucks the most is that this show doesn't even try to appeal to anyone over the age of 12 the way other shows do. There's no overly corny lines that could be great for memes like Digimon or anything dubbed by 4Kids, and there's no overarching story with some kind of deeper message to help preteens navigate their way through growing up. It especially sucks because I feel like with the right timing and writing, this show could have been a huge hit. If it took the approach of Avatar and had an overarching story while balancing out filler and worked better to make the dialogue actually have some meat to it, then this show definitely would have been pretty good. Not to mention improve the animation. Watching this show was genuinely boring, not gonna lie. It was like episode after episode of the same preteen drama without any meat on it to last longer than the moment we all hit 13, for crying out loud. Though I will say, you could have convinced me this show was made by a bunch of kids because the animation and writing definitely felt like it was made by kids. I mean, I've seen better writing in fan fiction and roleplays my friends made at that age, jeez. What's funny to me is, other than reminding me of a project made by children, this actually reminded me of those shitty My Story animated videos that trace over anime and stuff. I wonder if I should do a video of that sometime. That's it for this video though. Let me know down below what you think. Do any of you from France or Canada remember this show? Would you watched it if you were younger and gave it a shot? Let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. And if any older new subs would like to help support the channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who would like to help with video ideas or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, then I have a fan server link down below. See you next time!